You know, this video was originally something completely different. What do I mean? Last video we spoke about hate and the lack of it in Genshin Impact, and part of that, involved discussing the Raiden Shogun and Inazuma. There were some interesting conversations in the comments that I thought would make for a decent video, so I went back and skimmed the entire Inazuma story quest, took notes, did some real-world research, because people seem to forget the Shogun is in fact was in fact a real position. That was by definition a dictatorship. I wrote a script, but as I was recording the video, it just sounded so depressing. Sitting here talking about like basic human rights, what constitutes absolute authority, and like potential social mobility and poor whites in the late 19th century, USA being a key reason for why they supported slavery despite not owning slaves. It was just nasty, man. It felt more like a January video, if nothing else. Some of y'all still remember what we did last January when we like blitzed through all the archons and just sort of reviewed them? Oh, those were dark times. Hey, necessary conversations, but dark times. A time period filled with mass headcanons, favoritism, and plain rewriting of history in the comments section. Dark times. I was getting cooked in some of them, but, such is life in the motherfucking Forum Romana, bitch. Sometimes you cook, sometimes you get cooked. So what are we doing today? Something a little more upbeat, I bet. Let me ask a question. Why is Dainsleif the enemy? Not our enemy, not their enemy, the enemy. What do I mean? Dainsleif, he's a weird guy, huh? Very, very weird. Part of his weirdness lies with his relationship to our sibling, in that they are either both lying, or there were some major Irminsul alterations that happened in the past. Again, what do I mean? Our sibling hates Dainsleif. They call him their enemy for this reason.
You shouldn't team up with this man. He is my enemy.
You mean?
That man, Dainsleif, was the Twilight Sword, one of the royal guards of the final dynasty of Conria. 500 years ago, he failed to prevent the destruction of Conria. A curse of immortality was laid upon him to forever wander the wilderness, while he watched the people he was supposed to protect turn into monsters of the abyss.
I've said it before, I'll say it again. I still think it's hilarious the sibling expected Dane to just 1v9 the Cataclysm. That shit will never stop being funny. That aside, her reason for hating Dainsleif makes no sense when we consider the fact that after the Cataclysm, she traveled with Dainsleif through the Seven Nations as, companions? Travel partners. And I mean, they didn't exactly look friendly towards one another, but by Dane's account of things, they should have been close enough that he questioned why our sibling didn't inform him of their run-in with Clothar and the Crystal.
And it seems closely connected to Clothar Alberich's son, Caribert, and what happened to him. And yet your sister never breathed a word of this incident to me. I wonder, was that the moment that she decided to go down this path? Indeed. Clearly, this series of events sparked a long period of deep contemplation. This was where it all began.
But isn't this odd to anyone? If our sibling's only gripe with Dane was him failing to prevent the Cataclysm, then why travel with him? We know the two knew one another in Conria.
During the Age of Conria, all I knew was his name. The last time I saw him in person, he was traveling with the princess.
So surely she knew then what she knows now, which is Dainsleif failed to prevent the Cataclysm and to save Conria. And I mean, so did Vedrfolnir, but yeah, fuck it, I guess. But if that's the case, then again, why journey the Seven Nations with someone you hate, only to later come to the conclusion that you must now stand against one another hundreds of years later? Something else must have changed to cause them to become foes, but what? The obvious answer would be the Abyss Order, but there must be something more, because like stated earlier, Vedrfolnir, just like Dane, failed to stop the Cataclysm, but is working with our sibling in the Abyss Order. Presumably this drift between our sibling and Dane happened towards the end of their journey, as we know they didn't reach it together.
We both partook in a painful journey of searching for our fate. But regrettably, we did not make it to the journey's end together.
So what happened at the end of our siblings' journey that caused them to turn on Dainsleif? Well, let's ask Irminsul.
According to the records I was able to access, your sibling suddenly appeared in Conria. After the Conria disaster, she began her journey through the 7 nations of Tevat. But just as her journey was about to reach its conclusion, the Irminsul records on her suddenly become fuzzy.
What do you mean, fuzzy? Did something happen to her?
All I know for sure is that somebody, for reasons only they can know, is deliberately obfuscating her fate. And whoever it is, if they can do that, who knows what else they're capable of.
Now, isn't that odd? Who could have done that? Who could have obfuscated our siblings' fate? I don't know. Maybe it was someone whose name implies they are pretty familiar with trees. Irminsul is a tree, after all, and what if it had to have been someone who's very powerful? Who could that be? Putting aside that for now, this leaves us with only one possible avenue, so let's ask the sibling where they were at the end of their journey.
At the end of my journey, I arrived at a place known as the Sea of Flowers at the End.
The Sea of Flowers at the End. You know, our journey will also end at the Sea of Flowers at the end, but something interesting is going to happen there.
Your journey has reached its end, but one final doorway remains. Step forth if you have understood the meaning of your journey. Defeat me, command me to step aside. Show me that you are worthier than I to rescue her. Then, the threads of all fate will be yours to reweave.
Dainsleif is going to become our enemy. At roughly the same point in the journey, he became our sibling's enemy. Look, all I'm saying is, if old Dane here has had 2 falling outs with 2 different people, you know, he's the common denominator, right? We gotta start really zeroing in on this guy, huh? Well, according to our sibling, once we see the true nature of this world at the end of our journey, we'll understand and maybe we'll turn against Dane then, because I guess he has something to do with the true nature of this world that will anger us and angered our sibling? The other option, of course, for why the sibling hates Dane is Irminsul. Look, we know Irminsul can force people to adopt new identities and whatnot, and attribute actions to them that make people view them in a different manner, so something of a similar nature could have happened to Dainsleif. On the far more conspiratorial side of things, when Nahida looked at our sibling's journey, although she didn't state our sibling traveled alone, why didn't she mention that our sibling traveled with someone else? Could it be that she never saw anyone else, because Dane never existed? Wouldn't that be a twist, huh? For those unaware, Dainsleif's title of Bow Keeper. A bow is simply a branch of a tree. So in essence, Dainsleif is a tree keeper, food for thought. So could it be possible he somehow obfuscated our sibling's fate, hid himself from Irminsul, and used it to gain knowledge regarding this world? I mean, he does know an awful lot about an awful lot. In what better place to gain an awful lot of information than the world's repository, which just so happens to be a tree? Another thing I found odd when rewatching the preview trailer, given it sort of states the story in chronological order, it seems to present that our journey with our sibling started together in the Sea of Flowers. Why is that?